It's September 20th, 2021, just after 2 p.m. and we have just left the marina, as you can see out the window, and we are headed out of Southwest Harbor and hopefully over to Swan's Island, to the western side of Swan's Island, to a little harbor called Buckle Harbor, which is a very scenic little harbor to visit. So we're looking forward to that. It's the first time the boat will have been over there in several years. I'll shoot a little video as we go. We're underway. That's Sutton Island over there and the Cranberry Islands. And so far the biggest hazard has been wakes from lobster boats. It's just after 2 and they're starting to come in for the day, so hopefully we don't have to pass too many more narrow passages. And that is where we're going, back out the western way where we went the other day, and I will put in a chart of this trip right here. The trip over to Buckle Island is about 12.8 nautical miles. We've gone about 1.6 so far, so 11.2 to go as we head out into the western way. Well, as we approach the entrance buoy to the western way, we are probably seeing some of the roughest conditions I'm going to expect today. Right now we've got the better part of a knot of tidal current with about 8 or 9 knots of wind against it, which will magnify the swell. But the tidal current is going to drop off quite dramatically when we get past this buoy, which we are doing right now. And we're about to make a turn, so we'll be taking the waves sort of on the port bow as we head for the next buoy, which I doubt you can see, but it's straight ahead, and it is the long ledge buoy. And I would expect that it's going to flatten out a little bit out here, and once we turn around the long ledge buoy, it should flatten out more for a while till we get onto the Bass Harbor Bar, where we will be bucking the tide instead of having a favorable current. Now this is our turning point, the long ledge buoy, and we're going to make about a 90-degree turn to starboard, and we'll have probably about a half mile where it might be a little rolly, and then we're going to get into the lee of Gott's Island right there, which is the near island, as we head toward the Bass Harbor Bar. Okay, we're just now passing the buoy, and this is the worst direction to go right now because we're straight into the sun, and can't see lobster here. So here we go, making our turn, and hopefully it won't be too rolly, and hopefully it will flatten out fast. As we are now heading almost west toward the Bass Harbor Bar, and we will go right past the Bass Harbor Lighthouse in about a mile and a half. Right now we're just coming up on Ship Harbor. That's the entrance over there. The trail that starts there comes out to the rocks to the right of the entrance. And straight ahead here we have Bass Harbor Head, where the lighthouse is located. So we're going to go right past the lighthouse. Now, we're approaching the Bass Harbor Bar now. This is likely to be the roughest part of the passage today, because we've got a fairly strong outgoing tide. It's subtracted about a knot from our speed over ground so far. There are 2 buoys that mark a channel across the bar, but we don't have to pay attention to those because the minimum depth across the northern half of the bar here, north is to the right, is about 10 feet, and Tortuga only draws about 3 feet. Here's another view of the lighthouse as we're just about out of the chop. The biggest problem we had was a lobster boat cut right in front of us and rolled us pretty good. Now we're across the Bass Harbor Bar, and as you can see, it's a lot flatter here in Blue Hill Bay. That island there is God's Island. Behind it is Little God Island, Black Island. The more distant island is one of the sister islands, and this closer island here, starting to get into the sun, is Placentia, and in the distance is Swan's Island, and we are headed west toward the west side of Swan's Island. Basically, we're about halfway to Buckle Harbor, and that straight ahead is where we're going. The only issue we have is lobster gear, and there's a lot of toggled lobster pots here in Blue Hill Bay. Off to starboard, we have Bass Harbor as we head west across Blue Hill Bay. So this is probably the most boring part of the trip. We're just going to head about 6 miles west across Blue Hill Bay until we get to Casco Passage, which is a narrow channel that we're going to go through and then turn into Buckle Harbor. Here's the view looking aft to starboard toward Bass Harbor and the hills of the western part of Mount Desert Island. And right ahead here is the entrance buoy for Casco Passage and York Narrows. Casco's Passage is pretty much straight through on this course, but you can also turn off to port and go through York Narrows, which is where we're going to go, because that is where Buckle Harbor is. And we're only a little over a mile from our anchorage at this point. Well, we're just about to enter York Narrows. Our first turning point is coming up ahead. I don't know if you can see it, it's almost directly into the sun, but there is a can buoy pretty much right on the bow. And the only issue is that there is lobster gear in the narrow channel here, which is kind of a nuisance. So we will try to avoid it. But once I pass that can, I'm going to turn to port, and there's a nun buoy right down there, kind of in the center of the field of view, that we're going to head for. Now we're going to leave it to starboard. And a little bit of land past the nun buoy is Buckle Island, and the harbor is just this side of it. So we're almost there. On the plus side, once we round this can and head for the nun, which you can see right over there, we won't be into the sun anymore, so I'll be able to see the lobster here, which will be nice. Okay, now we just run straight for that nun buoy, or leave it slightly to starboard. You can see it up there. There's the can that we're going around. Now we're going to head for this nun. And once we pass it, we'll head for the next nun buoy and then turn into Buckle Harbor. It looks like there are 2 boats anchored, two boats anchored in Buckle. Well, we're approaching Buckle Harbor. We're going to go up just past this nun buoy ahead and turn to port and head into the harbor, which is right over there. Okay, making the final turn to go into Buckle Harbor. Right up here, which is nice because we're no longer straight into the sun. And we'll just go in, find a spot, and throw the anchor down. Now, Tortuga is a good boat to anchor in here because this harbor is, 7 to 10 feet deep for most of it at low tide. So Tortuga, which draws 2 feet 10, can anchor pretty much anywhere in here without any problems, even on a negative tide. Well, we're anchored down in Buckle, It took about 2 hours and 40 minutes from the time we pushed off the dock until we got the anchor down. We're in between two other boats. And there's Buckle Island. I've got about 70 feet of chain out and we're anchored in 7 feet of water. So at high, that'll be around 20 feet, and we'll be okay for chain because it should be pretty calm in here tonight. Okay, Buckle Harbor. Here on the western side of Swan's Island, between Swan's Island and Buckle Island. Should be a pleasant evening.